What's up, Acadiana, and welcome to Offsides. I'm Shannon Wilkerson here with Brandon Comeaux. Thanks for joining us for today's broadcast. We'll be with you for one more hour up until 6 o'clock. And we are privileged this afternoon to have none other than Congressman Clay Higgins and Dog the Bounty Hunter and Beth joining us for our broadcast. Hello, gentlemen. Welcome to Offsides.
Shannon, what's up, brother? It's great to be here with you.
Aloha, brother.
Yeah, aloha, great. Oh, that brings up Hawaii. A lot of our listeners know that you're from Hawaii, Dog, and you've got that the volcano.
Yeah,
the volcano is
taking over the Big Island.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, we're 200 miles from it, so we have a lot of fog. It's called. You'd call it smog here.
Mm-hmm.
But those people over there's 30-some houses been destroyed. But you know when you say warning, something could happen, so they were kind of ready for it. But,
yeah.
The Hawaiians believe that Pele is the god of fire, which is on top of that mountain. Mm-hmm. And as she destroys some of the earth, on the other side of her face, one side is really ugly, the other side is beautiful. But as she destroys one side, the other side she's building. So that lava, of course, will dry and create a Big Island.
That's incredible, and I've seen some amazing footage of the lava that's taken over cars and homes and stuff like that, and really big news over there. And so, Congressman, the Redemption Ride, it's here tomorrow. We've been working on it for weeks. The time is now. Tell us about it.
The time is now, and we've been blessed with beautiful weather, which was a question earlier in the week. But you know what? We just turn those things over to loving and saving God, and we have good weather for tomorrow. Redemption Ride. It's about recognizing what it is to be just a humble American. This is not our first redemption ride, but it's certainly our biggest. Tomorrow, registration begins at 9 in the morning. Kickstands up at 10:30, and then we'll roll a couple of hundred vehicles. We're going to roll thunder, baby. A lot of bikes and many Wranglers are registered. So we'll ride for a couple hours, make a couple of stops along the way. A dog will be with us in a Wrangler on display, and Beth will be riding with us. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West is going to be riding with us. He rode his Harley here from Dallas this week in order to attend this ride. He's a friend and a supporter. We're just recognizing our admiration and respect for our veterans, police officers, first responders, firemen, EMS, current military members and veterans. They all ride free. And my campaign has sponsored this thing, but it's not really a fundraiser. We're going to have a net expense out of it. And the bottom line is just to come together as Americans, have a great day gathering with love and respect for each other. And around a theme of redemption, Shannon, which, as you know, that's part of my life story, and I believe it's part of every American story. We're all failed and fallen in some way, and hopefully, as we journey through life, we're redeemed by the blood of Christ. So this is just an annual ride. It has never been this big, and, man, your listeners should come join us. You don't have to ride, by the way. We'll be back at Cajun Harley around 1 o'clock or so. We have live music in the afternoon, excellent music, great food, good times. So if you're not riding and you just want to come attend, please come by Cajun Harley tomorrow afternoon and join us.
So you heard this right, y'all. We are visiting with Congressman Clay Higgins and Dog the Bounty Hunter. And I'm sure listeners are wondering, how did you two guys come to meet each other? It's really a pretty interesting story.
Well, we have, of course, we still work. Everyone's asking, are you retired, Dog? No, we're not. But we will not be executing warrants tomorrow. But we needed help in Washington, D.C., so I had seen Captain Higgins in a lot of commercials across America. And in my job, you need something to enthuse you, or you need to look at leaders or heroes, and you need to find someone that you'd kind of like to be like.
Yeah.
And so I saw Captain Higgins on, Beth first saw it and showed me his commercial, and I said, my God, that's a real cop. He's talking about God, he's talking about redemption, and he's talking about punishment. Those three things is right up my alley. So we had a problem, and we went to Washington and asked him to help, and he jumped in, as they say down here, with both feet.
Yeah.
So he was very successful, and he's like a brother from a different mother. And there's a redemption story behind my old in the 70s. I wear shades because I cry a lot. I had no idea about the word redemption. So we want everyone to show up, no matter what your past is. Beth and I are going to do a public meet and greet where we'll try to shake your hand and get a picture. And said this is an American way. We're just going to celebrate being alive and loving each other. And I'm half Apache, so please, every Indian out there, get out there. No, but all creeds and tribes, and some about
around here. They're at the casinos.
Yeah. Oh, are they?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we don't make any of that.
No.
We can keep the tips. That's it.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be great, and I have my chaperone Beth with me, so it's rewarding.
Well, of course, it's great to have you here in Acadiana, and Congressman. So, tell us about how you began riding, because I know personally that you're a rider. And we're getting a lot of riders, a lot of people that are going to be participating in the ride tomorrow. And there's a bond there. There's a brotherhood that exists between a lot of riders, a lot of people that like to participate in these kind of events. Tell us how you got started.
Shannon, I started riding motorcycles as a young teenager, riding dirt bikes. And like a lot of guys, that motorcycle sort of background begins on dirt bikes. And then when I went to college at LSU, in 1979, that began my street bike history, and I'm on my 12th street bike right now. I have a V-Rod Muscle, a Harley, and I'll be on it tomorrow. I've been on many bike rides. A lot of folks don't realize. You talk about the brotherhood of riding motorcycles. When you see an American out there riding, a man or woman out there riding a motorcycle on a weekend, it's usually involved with a charity event. Am I correct?
Oh, very correct.
That's right. And
we host a lot of those
These are solid
rides.
Americans, man. That we have love and respect and compassion for each other, regardless of color or creed or culture or where you are on the economic strata or what your heritage is or your background, what kind of job you do, what kind of life you've lived. The brotherhood of riders at Roll Thunder is very, very comprehensive and diverse.
I agree completely. We are so divided now as a nation, and that division is so reflective in practically every conversation that we have. But I'll tell you, when you go on these rides, and we do host a lot of rides over at Cajun Harley Davidson, everybody, it's real inclusiveness. There is real diversity with these groups. There's every race, there's every culture, there's every economic background.
That's right.
And none of it matters when these guys and ladies start riding together. All that is just put aside.
Exactly. So it's a microcosm of what could be, the very best of America. So I just invite the people of Acadiana to come and join us, man. Myself, my friend Dog, his beautiful wife, and boss, by the way, Beth. Sure. My wife will be there. Beck will be driving her Wrangler. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, legendary interrogator, will be joining us. Author and former congressman. He's my friend and supporter. He'll be riding with us. I just invite everyone in Acadiana to come to the event and see what a real America United can look like.
All right, so it's time for our first break of the hour. Dog the Bounty Hunter, Congressman Clay Higgins are our guests during this hour of Offsides. And when we come back, we're going to get them to talk about the legislation that was mentioned, the legislation that basically brought them to work together really for this country and for the betterment of it. And so we're going to go ahead and take this quick break. When we come back, more with Dog and Congressman Higgins right after this. Welcome back into Offsides. Brandon Comeaux, Shannon Wilkerson, News Talk 96.5 KPEL, and we got some special guests in the studio with us. Congressman Clay Higgins and Dog the Bounty Hunter and Dog's beautiful wife, Beth, joining us as well. So first off, thank y'all for coming on by the studio. We really appreciate y'all being here. And of course,
happy to be here.
And of course, y'all are in town for the Redemption Ride, and the Redemption Ride happening tomorrow at Cajun Harley Davidson. Congressman Clay Higgins, Dog the Bounty Hunter, also Lieutenant Colonel Alan West will be there tomorrow as well. Should be an amazing time. The weather will be cooperative as well. We'll tell you a little bit more about the Redemption Ride as we continue on with the conversation. But first, we've got to talk about the legislation that brought you two together. Tell our listeners a little bit about the legislation itself, Dog, and just how Dog, this is something that's very important to you, and how Congressman Higgins was able to help you get this accomplished.
Well, right now in the criminal justice system, if you get arrested, let's talk about a felony that you're booked in jail, your fingerprints are taken, and the bail is set. So we have a faction on the other side. I don't know if it's right or left. It's crazy. I call them the gullibles. And they want you to get out free. Here's a piece of paper. See you later. If you do not show up when that piece of paper says, they give you another piece of paper. Oh, you missed. Here's another one. Oh, you missed. Here's another one. It doesn't have any parameters on how many times you could miss. You miss once, okay, now you're going to pay for it. You're going to pay a bail bond. You're going to get out. So we had no record of how many people they were letting out, how many times they were letting them out. We know there's millions and millions of dollars wasted on this free bail because 47% right now in Houston, they just tried it, did not show up. The sheriff, we've had officers in San Francisco quit because they said, this is not working. The cop books the guy before he gets home, the guy's out free, waving a flag in front of him. So the congressman helped. Beth Chapman is my wife, his beautiful wife. Every kid can say beautiful. You really look good. And so she's, wow. It's this Louisiana weather. So she is the president of the National Association of Bail Bondsmen. So we had to find someone who was, number one, God-fearing and loving, had mercy, yet is a tough guy. And we both said, boy, there he is right there. And we knew his law enforcement background. And like I said, we'd been watching him way before he was a congressman over the years. So we went to visit him in Washington, D.C. at the White House. By God, he's got an office in there. And it's security. I mean, they're like, let me smell them cigarettes, dog. It's hard to get in there. So, good. And so we met him and showed him the legislation. And from there, it's history. I mean, he got behind it. What we want to do is, how many times did you let him out free? How much money did you spend? And how much of the taxpayer money are you wasting? The guy's guilty. Probable cause when he's arrested means he probably did it, okay? So most of these guys, 77% are guilty. We want to see what you spend on them, how much taxpayer money goes out. It is funded by the government. Anytime the government
through
funds,
grants,
the branch?
through grants. Yeah.
Oh, what does that mean?
That means money from the federal government given to the jurisdictional authorities to fund pretrial release programs and pretrial diversion programs.
Diversions, yep.
Yeah. So the bottom line is that, you know, of course, we live in a land of constitutional protections. Every American, once arrested, is presumed innocent until proven guilty, as it should be. However, once an American is arrested, that arresting officer has to present probable cause in the form of an affidavit to a judge in Louisiana within 48 hours of arrest. And that judge reviews that probable cause to see if it's a righteous arrest. Like, why exactly have you taken this American's freedom away from them? That's our most prized possession, our freedom as Americans. So it's a heavy responsibility, and the judges take it very seriously. So during the magistrate's hearing just after arrest, within a prescribed period at every state across the country, that judge determines if it was a righteous arrest. And then bonds should be set. But what's been happening is across the country, unbelievably, they've been releasing, and by the way, judges at that point at magistrates hearing review criminal history. So even if it's a pretty serious offense that they've been arrested for, the judge looks at criminal history. They may have been arrested many scores of times in some cases. They have long criminal histories, and yet, believe it or not, across the country, they've been letting these guys go on their own recognizance on a pretrial release program. There's no transparency of that. There's no records kept of that and provided. The federal government is funding these programs, so we the people, have the right to know who has been released without bond on a pretrial program across the country, so that we'll have some accountability for this American. Yes, innocent until proven guilty, but nonetheless, if they're in the judicial system and they've been released without bond, we have the right to know if they've been released, who they are, what they're accused of, and we have the right to know if they don't show up for court.
Oh, I agree completely. I think most people would agree with us as well. But one of the things that I'm curious about is the level of arrest, it doesn't make any difference if it's a felon or a misdemeanor. None of this is considered when these people are released?
Well, a misdemeanor crime, they get a summons and
but
they're gone,
even
man.
if it's a felony arrest.
But a felony arrest, now let me clarify, there's such thing as a felony in the sentencing guidelines. If the sentencing guidelines include the words at hard labor, then that's considered a felony. If the sentencing guidelines say may or may not include hard labor, that's called a relative felony. If sentencing guidelines do not include the words at hard labor, it's considered a misdemeanor. But in all cases, the judge at the point, if they go for a magistrate's hearing, if they haven't been released on summons by the officer, which is that we have discretion to release and someone that we've arrested. If it's a misdemeanor crime, we have the discretion to release them on summons ourselves. But so if you're going before a judge at a magistrate's hearing, right, the officer themselves, if it's a misdemeanor, we don't have that discretion with a felony. So the bottom line is, if an American is presented to a magistrate's court within so many hours of their arrest, by nature of the beast, man, it's a pretty serious crime. So to let them go without any kind of bond responsibility, with no surety bond,
there's no check and balance.
It's not a good idea.
So Shannon was mentioning the fact that we're all obviously in support of the legislation, but surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, considering the state of this country and some of our leaders that are within it, there was actually very strong opposition to this legislation.
It should let's let Dog and Beth address that, because they witnessed what happened on the House floor this week before we passed this legislation. I was surprised at the level of resistance from my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. It was a pretty serious debate.
Yep. Well, I was up there, like I said, we seen Congressman Higgins, and we met with some of the people that didn't meet with the exact people, but some of the people that are in opposition, and they're absolutely being duped. These people are being duped. They were coming up with information. I said, wait a minute, where'd you get that information? Well, we got it from this and that. And I go, that's 1989. What are you doing here? So the reason their heart's in it is we haven't had a chance to sit down and say, wait a minute, where are you getting those statistics at? Where did you hear this at? That's why there's so much opposition. But Congressman Higgins was so heroic in his, you know how his vocabulary is. I just learned another word from you. And I mean, I was like getting goosebumps.
It's an ongoing education.
Well, you know how the preacher's like, you think he's talking to the guy next door, and the guy next door is like, I'm the preacher's son. I think he's talking to you. And I'm getting goosebumps, and he's like anointed up there. I was like, oh my God, look at him go. And he was very, honesty and truth is really, really heavy. When you're using that, you're going to win. And I walked out when he got done. I told Beth right there, that's over. He just won this. And we won not by a narrow margin, because I watched the rest of the day, though. Some of them won by 2 votes.
We won by 12.
Yeah, it was not a lot. There was a great deal of resistance.
You know, what troubles me about this is the narrative, okay? And the narrative that's being told to people is that people are in jail because they're poor, and that people are languishing there. People are not in jail because they're poor. They're in jail because they broke the law. And as far as the languishing, I just got to say that, as a parent, when my children have gone to jail, which a couple of them have gone to jail from time to time, it's my decision when I let them out. It's my determination when I think they've had enough time. One of my daughters got a DUI, and I got to tell you, she was still drunk 5-6 hours later, and she's still calling the house and raising hell. And I said, till she sobers up, I'm not touching her. I'm leaving her there, and she's going to learn a lesson from this. And I think that, by the left, the social do-gooder, if you will, running around here saying, people are in jail because they're poor. They've sat there on a $250 bond. If you're sitting in jail on a $250 bond, that means you got no friends. You got no friends. Your family's sick of you.
And you don't have $250.
And you ain't got $250. But why don't you have $250? Because you don't have a job, because you haven't been productive, because you've basically been out there running amok. And at some point, that muck has to end. But what's bothersome is that, our legislators, and it's frightening, okay, because they're voting for something that's trendy. They're not voting because their heart tells them that this is the right thing for their people. They're voting because their colleague wants them to vote for that, or because their party is voting for that. And that
or it's because
scary.
it's popular.
It's popular.
It's a popular way to go.
You know, and it's popular right now. And look, I got to tell you, you know, NAACP, ACLU, Color of Change, Black Lives Matters, these guys are big, fat bullies. That's all they are. And if they were so concerned about, you know, people languishing in jail, the ACLU would be actually doing their jobs and protecting their civil liberties, not out there trying to get them free bail or a free pass to whatever crime they just committed. That's incorrect. But back to them being bullies, this is their policy of pattern and practice. They go after advertisers. They go after, you know, now Google and Facebook. They put so much pressure on Google and Facebook. They have shut down advertising for bail bonds companies all over this country. Seriously. Now, if these two huge, you know, marketing companies that basically have a duopoly, they are monopolizing the entire industry, the two of them, now suddenly say that, well, your job is not politically correct for us, so you can't have an income, you can't have a lifestyle, you can't advertise your business. The fact is that bail bonds is still going to be a legal, legitimate business. And what good is it to the people of the country to not be able to find a reputable company online? You know, we don't use phone books anymore, you know, sorry to say, because the phone book was a big source of income. But most everybody is on these phones because they want what they want when they want it.
Well, yeah, we're addicted to instant gratification with our cell phones. And we've been talking about that so many times. We have a lot of shows on that, especially with today's youth and how they are growing up with this instant gratification. They have information, shopping, social media, everything is right there at their hands at a time.
But if Google and Facebook remove you, you're not getting instant nothing.
Yeah,
so
that's
now
very
what
true.
you're going to do is you're going to load up grandma in a car and you're going to go down to the jail and you're going to drive around and try to find someone reputable or try to find your better deal.
If you don't have a bail bondsman in your phone list, you're in a bind, man.
That
becomes your best friend if you get arrested.
Can I just tell
I
you,
got mine in my phone.
And bail bondsmen have been here since the foundation of this country. We have been here since its founding. So for Facebook and Google, which, by the way, I was here before you. We were here before you, Google. We were here before you. Okay, Facebook. We have been providing this service to the community for folks who really could not afford bail. People that their bond was $5,000 or $10,000, they go to their local bail bond shop and we would give them a 10% rate. And look, a lot of people can't even come up with the 10%. But the bail bond company gave them a finance plan. But because we finance the bond and let you make payments, suddenly we become the villain. We become a predatorial industry. Predatorial? You kidding me? Let's get the lawyers off Facebook. Let's get the lawyers off Google. Why should you be able to make any money if you're a social worker, a lawyer, or any other person who works for the jail?
Well, yours is a service that accommodates the court system and the public in so many different ways.
User-funded service that is not funded by the taxpayers.
We're going to take a short break.
After the break, let's talk about how accepting responsibility ties together with redemption of the individual, and how the bail bonding and industry is an integral part of that, accepting responsibility.
Sounds good. We'll be right back here on Offsides. Welcome back to Offsides, everybody. Shannon Wilkerson, Brandon Comeaux, Congressman Clay Higgins, Dog the Bounty Hunter. Beth, thanks for joining us today. We've been having a great conversation about the redemption ride and redemption itself, Congressman.
Yes, Shannon, I just wanted, in our last segment, we were talking about the significance of accepting responsibility for your actions. You know, all of us have failed and fallen in some way. I'm no exception. And redemption, I believe, is within every human spirit. We have the capacity for that. But that begins with accepting responsibility. And sometimes people have to be forced to accept responsibility for their actions. There has to be some consequence for your actions. So if you're arrested for a crime serious enough that you have to go before a judge and a magistrate's hearing after your arrest, then if there's no bond set for your arrest, you just walk away. So there's never a moment where that human being, where that child of God would sit in jail wondering, why do I not have friends? Why do I not have $300 or $400 to cover my percentage of my $3,000 or $4,000 bond to pay a bail bondsman?
No time for reflection.
In that contemplative state is where acceptance of responsibility happens in many cases, and this is where redemption can begin. So if you have compassion for your fellow man, if you believe that every child of God is capable of embracing the redemptive spirit within us, then you should support a disciplined bond system within our judiciary. Would you agree, Dog?
I completely agree, because guess what? I was one of those guys.
That's right.
That needed redeemed. In 1977 in Texas, I made big rocks, little rocks for 18 months.
I also went to jail and sat 6 months. And honestly, when I came out...
Me too. I spent 6 hours.
I would write letters to the judge going, listen, Francis, I have a life. This is not for me. And he brought me in about 5 months in, and he said, ma'am, you're going to do every single day of that sentence. This was for theft of rental property, because I didn't take my VCR back to the store on time, okay? So I was so flippant that I thought, this isn't a crime, this is stupid, you know what I mean? And so I never took it seriously until that door closed behind me. And then you sit there with people that maybe you don't feel that you belong to be with. But it is that realization, it is that rock bottom that basically brings you back to the redemption. I need redemption. I got to change my life. I cannot be locked up like this. And if we take away that mechanism, no repercussion, no deterrent.
Well, the redemption ride tomorrow will be an opportunity. 9 o'clock registration at Cajun Harley, 10:30 kickstands up, all afternoon back at the store. Excellent music and food. A gathering of Americans that understand that we're all equal, we're all the same. I invite your listeners to come and join us for an afternoon of what an America united can look like.
And here's what I like to say, okay? Yeah, Beth and I are alleged celebrities, but listen, how many times have people told you, get a hold of your congressman, get a hold of your representative, tell him, guess what? This is incredible. You get to meet your congressman, your guy, the main man who stands for you, Louisiana, in his boots against all of them. You get to say, here's my email address, sir. Here's my number. Here's what happened. And when he goes to Washington, he's not going to forget you. You know his personality. He's going to remember that every time. So this is where you get to meet one of your top representatives who is a decent, God-fearing human being.
That's right. The redemption ride tomorrow. Cajun Harley Davidson, Congressman Clay Higgins, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. Kickstands up 10:30 or so.
Yes, sir.
Kim Guidry will be live on stage right afterwards. We're going to have the National Guard out there. Lafayette Sheriff's Department will be out there. Lots of food trucks, a lot of fun, bands, a lot of good time. The meet and greet afterwards. And by the way, if you are not participating in the ride, you can still participate in the meet and greet. So don't feel like you're going to be left out in any way.
Come out there.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for Offsides today. Y'all, thank y'all so much for coming by. Dog the Bounty Hunter, his beautiful wife, Beth, Congressman Clay Higgins, thank y'all so much for stopping by, and good luck with tomorrow's event.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother. Aloha.